Hey all, it's Scott here from Art of the Genre, and today is Fantasy Friday. We are going to take a look at one of my all-time favorite modules. I put this off for a long time because I wanted to make sure that I did it right. This is going to be a two-parter, but we're going to go over the first part today. This is going to be on the module B3, Palace of the Silver Princess. This was written by Gene Wells and Tom Moldvay in 1981. Some of the things that you might know about this module or have heard about this module is that there is a gold edition of it where instead of green, it's in gold. It's very expensive and this was a module that was written and had some artwork in it that Gary Gygax did not like. And he wanted all the print versions of them thrown in the trash. They were supposedly taken out behind TSR into a dumpster and all thrown away there. And nobody ever got any copies. There's all kinds of, folklore concerning this, and you can see the actual artwork that was in those modules if you really want to go look at it. It's just kind of ridiculous art, in my opinion. People said it was too racy, but I don't agree with that. It's really more of a kind of a rip on some of the people at TSR, including Gary. So I'm sure that's why he was irritated by it and wanted it taken out. The artwork that was replaced in this edition of it, which is the one that went to print, is fantastic. I'm going to roll down some of the artists that are in it for you right here that's in my notes. Jim Rosloff, Jim Holloway, Bill Willingham, Harry Quinn, Lara Rosloff, Diesel LaForce. I mean, this is like a who's who list of 1981 TSR. And so the artwork is just absolutely fantastic. I'm going to give let's say 10, 15 seconds just so I can roll down some of them with you and you can look at them. Take a look. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and I will go over some other artwork as we go along in this. There's another section of artwork or a piece of artwork that is incredibly important to me that will be in part 2. And I'm not going to talk about it today, but nonetheless, it's in there. So if you see something that I missed, you're like, hey, wait, he missed something. No, it'll be in part 2 because that's the way I'm just breaking this up. And this is really about the first part or the introduction to it. But to me, B3 is one of the finest modules ever written. I think so, and maybe that's just my own nostalgia on it because this was the first module I ever purchased. I went to Kmart and I got this thing off a shelf and I was so excited. This was probably 7th or 8th grade for me. I got into the car, I ripped the shrink wrap off of it, and of course the contents fell out. Because it was a removable cover. And I was so incensed by this removable cover. Not that I hadn't seen one before. I'd seen one, a guy had one in a math class in 7th grade, and he had given it to me. That was Slave Lords, and it's a Slave Lords Stockade, actually. And it fell out, and I just couldn't understand it. And I so hoped that my new module wasn't the same way. But it was. But eventually I would figure out why that is. And you can see I practice that even today in my folios. All of them have removable covers so you can get to those maps. Anyway, that was a little divergence, but that's why I love this module so much. I have played it in 1st edition AD&D. I've played it in 2nd edition AD&D. I played it in 3rd edition or 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons. I played it in 3.5. I played it in Pathfinder. I can't get enough of this particular edition. I've never had the opportunity to play it in 5th, although now that I'm doing this video, I probably will, just so I can say that I have. But it is absolutely just a wonderful introduction. And one of the things that it says in this, I want to make sure I get this right. It says on the front cover, special instructional module. And it is a B, basic D&D module. So that means it doesn't have a lot of the wrinkles or expansions that Advanced Dungeons and Dragons has in it. But the instructional part of it is that the first section of this module is actually broken down into what I would consider a choose your own adventure. The entry into it, which is really, you go about pages 8 to 12, is all choose your own adventure. If you do this, this happens. If you do this, this happens. If you do this, this happens. So it helps a DM understand how the game works if you've never played it, because it is for basic. And that was a neat introduction for me, especially as a new player. And that's just in the entry to the gatehouse. It takes you through a certain number of rooms, and then it goes to the next part of it, which is in a standard module format, which is not choose your own adventure-y. It's just box text with encounters. So that is one of the neat parts about this one. It's kind of broken up into those two sections, but I'll get into it. I'll get into the other section in part 2. But first, let's talk about the setup of this particular module. This module was done in one of those settings where you're away somewhere in a kingdom called Haven. And the dwarves there in Haven delved too deeply, I guess, but they found this artifact that was sent by an ancient evil named Arik. And it was a gem, and they brought it to Argenta, the princess of Haven, who was the benevolent leader. And she gets this artifact, and then one of the protector knights comes to kind of investigate it. But that evening, the skies go black, the crops wither, and the kingdom is overrun kind of by orcs, goblins, hobgoblins, and the palace of Argenta, the Silver Princess, is encased in a amber or red amber glow, and no one can get into it. So that is kind of the setup for this particular thing, that the kingdom has been cursed by this gem, this apple-sized ruby called the Eye of Arik. So that is the basic setup for it. Now, you can do a lot of different things with this, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about in the initial setup of this. Supposedly, in the beginning of this module, the characters are visited in their dreams by the protectors, these knights, and they are requested to come and save the kingdom of Haven. But setup-wise, I've done a lot of different things with this. One of the big things about it to me were these knights, and there's something that I actually incorporated into the Nameless Realms. The knight that comes to visit is called Ellis the Strong. You can see a picture of him and his white drake or his dragon here. It's by Wells and Steve Sullivan. It's a great picture. Take a look. Now, I was so inspired by this when I initially read it, way back in the 80s, that this guy was riding a white dragon. And obviously in Dungeons and Dragons, we all know that white dragons are evil. So in my world, in the Nameless Realms, I adapted that and said that the dragons of a place that far to the north called the Ice Wall, which is like just a large glacier. All the dragons there were white, but they were good. And they had these protector knights with them that are very Elric-y in their descriptions. And I like them so much that I actually put them in the old Fiend folio here. And take a look at a picture of them. Yeah, so as you can see, I very much liked that concept of good, good dragons that even had, there were colors. That is where this starts, and you've got these protectors trying to bring the characters into it. But what I've done a lot of different settings on this. You could do Haven as this kingdom, this vale, this valley that was very peaceful and is overrun. So you could set it up having a small town that's still holding out, maybe on the edge of the valley, and have a place where the characters could go out from there. First investigating the valley and trying to actually get to the Palace of the Silver Princess. Or an inn or something that's out in these remote climes, and therefore they could journey out from there into the lands of Haven. One of the things that I did on one of the times that I played it, this would have been, I think, in 3rd edition, I did this. I actually set the castle in the middle of a city, and the city itself was under threat of war, and the garrison, they knew that there was a great garrison within this within the Palace of the Silver Princess that had supposedly either died or been locked away in time. in this red glow, and then the characters had to go in and not only free Argenta and the palace, but they had to get rid of they had to free the garrison, and that is in this light novel, The Cursed Legion. And one of the main evil people in this is a priest of Arak by the name of Catharandamus. And here he is right here, Catharandamus. Anyway, so this was my light novel that I wrote concerning pieces of Palace of the Silver Princess. It isn't a blow-by-blow by any means, but I was so inspired that I used parts of that to be within this. So you can set it anywhere. Like I said, that was a neat setting, that it was right in the middle of a city, but it was still, because of this glow, no one could get to it. They actually, in that one, they had to go in through the sewers and come up inside of it to not be killed by the glow. Whereas in the game, the module setup, the protectors give a little window of opportunity for the characters to get in and out of the Palace of the Silver Princess. So they're kind of helping them along in there. But nevertheless, that is some of the basic setup for it. One of the things that I've seen, though, if you put too much before this in setup, like having the characters go out, the module gives us great description of orcs, goblins, and hobgoblins that have taken over this valley, and they're killing people, or that they're just running rampant. And it would be a great opportunity for a campaign for characters to go in and have to fight these clans or these different things of hobgoblins or goblins. First goblins, then you could go orcs, and then hobgoblins. But if you do that, you're going to very quickly find your characters moving up, to third level, which this is designed first to third. And the monsters that you're going to find inside, therefore, you're going to be underpowered. So if you do that and you do a lot of setup beforehand in campaigning to get up and use this as your your carrot, the palace itself, you're going to have to modify some of the things inside. Like Ellis the Strong, who has this dragon, is a third level fighter. If that tells you anything, not that you have to fight him, but just tells you kind of the power that you're looking at within this module. So I think that's all I'm going to necessarily go into today. The basic setup for this and the choose your own adventure. One of the things that I always do, people ask me about different things. Room 16 in this has an opportunity for characters to find certain weapons or armor. I like to go in there and trick it out to allow the characters, if they're looking for specific pieces or need replenishments, I use room 16 to do that. That's the only specific note I have in the beginning, because everything is just so, step by step by step, because it's choose your own adventure, and you don't really get into the meat of the fighting until part 2, which we'll go into. But anyway, that's my setup for it. I've done a lot of different setups. As I've said, I've run it a lot of different ways. But I just really, I can't get enough of it. It is a fantastic little module, and it's perfect for low-level characters. And if you want to build a campaign around it, you could obviously go ahead and do that, especially expanding the valley or whatever other threats there might be out there before you even get to the palace. So that is part 1, B3, Palace of the Silver Princess. Hopefully you'll catch me next week when I'll do part 2 of this on Fantasy Friday. But otherwise, that's all I have to tell you about it today. If you have any comments or the ways that you've set this up, just comment below. I'd love to hear them. And as always, great gaming.